There we go. As we're getting situated, just want to share a couple things with you before Jason kind of mentioned it already, but just to kind of touch base on where we were this summer as student ministry as far as serving is concerned. We had 3 different mission opportunities outside of the Joplin area for our students this summer. The first happened early in the summer. At Green Country Camp, we had a group of students who went and served as camp staff. It was the same time that our children were at camp at Green Country, so they went and served there. Mid-July, we took a group to Tulsa, and those folks are represented by the green shirts this morning, so you see where we have different colored shirts. The green shirts were Tulsa, blue was New York City. But we served with a ministry called Mobile Missions in Tulsa, and Mobile Missions, a ministry that it is what it sounds like. They serve in mobile home parks and apartment complexes around the Tulsa area. In fact, we heard this summer there in 27 mobile home parks or apartment complexes. I think the week that we were there, our teams served in 8 of those neighborhoods. Why is that significant? The statistic for Tulsa is 95% of people that live in a mobile home park or apartment complex building, 95% of those folks are unchurched. And so their heart, Mobile Missions' heart, is to take the church to those areas. So that looked like a Bible camp in the morning at an assigned mobile home park or apartment complex. And then in the afternoons, we went out and did service projects. This year was unique. Tulsa had just experienced a storm, and there were trees and debris everywhere. So we actually got to partner with Samaritan's Purse and go out and serve with them in the afternoons while we were there. Our final trip this summer, like Jason said, the most recent one was in New York City, where we worked alongside Everlasting Church in the Bronx in New York City. So that was unique. You're going to hear a lot about that. You'll hear a lot about each one of those. But in the Bronx, our big thing was to connect people with the church. So there's 1.5 million people that live in the Bronx, and the pastor that we worked with knew of 4 churches for those 1.5 million people. And only 2 of those churches were English-speaking churches. So we were in a neighborhood, Pelham Parkway, of 30,000 people, and 100% street ministry. Walking the streets, surveying the neighborhood, trying just to connect people with the local church. And you're going to get to hear about that this morning. So we're going to get started. You grab those mics and we'll just kind of pass them down. We'll get started just like we did, guys. Really, and we're going to do general questions. So whether you were at Green Country, New York City, Tulsa, you can answer any of these questions as it relates to your specific trip. But first question is, what were we able to see God do or experience God do at our time, whether it's in the Bronx or in your neighborhood in Tulsa or Green Country? So if you have something, we'll just pass the mic and we'll go for a few minutes and we'll go to the next question.
So when we went into our groups to minister to the mobile home areas, as we held the Bible camp for the kids, we had about 12 kids attend to our Bible camp, and all of the kids made a decision. So all except one gave their life to Christ, and that one rededicated her life back to Christ. So.
So in Tulsa, you get split up into a group with people that you don't know. They try to split up churches, but I was in Melody's group. I don't know how that happened. But they try to, I originally was a little worried at that thought because a lot of people that I didn't know, didn't know what the community would be like. But as I was there, I found out that it's kind of, everyone's in the same boat. And so everyone is, my group was great. it was such a great community. I had fun with them doing it, and I just felt like we could bond connections easier just as a group of people. I'm still in contact with some people from Tulsa because it was just such a great time. And they just made it so, I don't want to say it was easy, but like they made it simpler, you know.
What I thought was pretty cool is that we helped Everlasting Church, and Pastor Jordan there moved there about 7 years ago. And New York is a very unique place. Everybody knows that's a very large place, and it's a very intimidating place. So to live in Oklahoma, where he was, and feel the call from God to go plant a church in New York with not much planning, but he had just had faith, and that's what he was supposed to do. So to see that and his commitment to that, and through all the hard times that he had, and just to be consistent with that, was pretty inspiring, because that takes a lot of faith to do. To go, like, we think it's hard to go talk to our friends or people on the street, but to move to New York with not much of a plan that was pretty inspiring.
So for the New York City mission trip, like Jess said, we were serving in a neighborhood in the Bronx of about like 30,000 people, which is like a little over half the size of Joplin. And Pastor Jordan, the pastor at Everlasting Church, said that you could walk around the neighborhood in about 10 minutes, which is just really weird to think about. And so I think I've never started a church before, but if you ask me, I think the hardest part about starting the church is the first part, like just getting like a couple people to join. To me, it would be the hardest part. Like, I don't know if you guys or some people might invite people to church. You're like, well, hey, we have church, Sundays this time to this time. You can also come on Wednesdays if you want. But like to him, he's like, hey, you want to come to church? It's just us. It's my wife and my daughter. So I don't know. I feel like that would be a lot more difficult. And Landon said he's been there 7 years, and there's like probably 50 people at his church. I'm like, wow, like 7 years, 50 people. But that's probably a lot better than what I could do. So
when they got there, like Aiden said, it was just Pastor Jordan, his wife, and their daughter, and they really felt called to go there. When they moved there, they had no idea where they were going to have the church. And so they got with a realtor, and so this realtor was like, hey, there's a vacant lower level of a building. It's not real big, but we could go look at it. And so Pastor Jordan, they were like, yeah. So they walk in, and it was like totally destroyed. No one had rented it in how long?
Yeah, 40 years.
40?
Yeah, 40 years.
40 years. And yeah, we don't have to tell about that. But there was stuff in there that wasn't great. But like the walls were destroyed. The concrete was busted up. Like Pastor Jordan was like, man, like this would be perfect. It's perfect location, but there's it's me, my wife, and my daughter. There's no way we can afford to renovate this building and anything like that. And the realtor got with the manager of the building, and she was like, oh no, like we've been saving for 40 years to renovate it. We've just been waiting for a good candidate to come by and get it. So they renovated this whole lower part of a building that costed him nothing. And so like God already had that planned out for over 40 years and was just waiting for Pastor Jordan to get there. So it's really cool how to think like God directs our paths. So Landon, with that, do you want to share how God directs our paths on street ministry?
So on Tuesday, we had surveys. So we go out, ask people if they want to take surveys, and we had our first session, which went pretty well. I mean, we had a lot of people respond, not a lot of people say no. So we go back, and then we end up going back out for about another hour and doing surveys again. And it was me, BJ, and another kid named Bryce who came from a different church. And we probably had like 10 people say no in a row. Like and the street we were on wasn't very busy. So like you saw somebody, you were hoping to say yes, and there wasn't a lot of people to ask. So we ended up crossing the street, and we saw this lady coming towards us from the corner, and I said to BJ, "Is like, should we talk to her?" And she goes, "Yeah." So the lady had earbuds in. She took them out as we were approaching her, and she told us later that she thought we were about to ask her directions to the zoo because she could kind of tell that we weren't from there. But so we had our survey, and our first question, well, we asked her if she lived there, if she lived in the neighborhood, if she wanted to take a survey. And our first question was the biggest need? And everybody said this, that we need better clean, like, is trashy, is pretty disgusting. So a lot of people said that they just need better cleanliness. Is that the word? That's the word. So then we asked her, do you think this neighborhood's religious? And everybody said it's mixed, because it was pretty obvious that it was a mixed neighborhood. It was a lot of different cultures, so there's going to be different religions. And then we asked, all right, is she a religious person? And she kind of got excited, and she started smiling. She said yes. And then so we asked her, who's Jesus to her? And then she started telling us about how Jesus is this amazing person, this important figure, and that, like, her personal relationship with Jesus. And so she was raised in church, and she was always believed in God and was ready to serve God. But she had, like, problems with her church, like, asking questions and everything, and, like, they got mad at her, and kind of, it was a long story, but for a large portion of her life, she was angry with God, and she kind of turned away. So the night before that we talked to her, she was praying, and she told God that she was ready to come back. She was ready to serve Him again. She needed guidance. She wanted to get out of New York, so she was praying. She wanted him to send somebody her way and, like, help her get connected with the church and everything. So BJ is pretty excited as we're talking to her and everything. We're telling her we're working with Everlasting Church. It's in the Bronx. It's really, like, 100 feet away from where she lives. And so she's telling us that she's going to be at the next night we have a game night, and that she's excited to go back and serve. And it's pretty cool just to see that God can use anybody, and He had a purpose for us to not talk to any of those people, that we had to be at that right spot at the right time to meet with her so we could help her get back with the Lord, and it was a pretty cool experience.
Just like Jess said, this was almost 100% street evangelism, something that I had never been a part of, and something that was completely out of my comfort zone. But to watch all of these kids be so brave to go up and talk to random people on the street was amazing. I was there as, to be a part of this also, but to make sure my group of girls were safe, or my group of, if we were mixed, were safe. They taught me an amazing boldness that Christ put in them. So these guys are rock stars. To be where they were when I was their age, I was nowhere close to where they are. And that is a driving force that allows me to stand up and be bolder because of that. So the humbleness that came with this trip, the boldness in Christ that came from this trip, is something that I can carry each day with me as I walk wherever I go in Joplin, or my ministry platform in a classroom. It's just amazing. It was amazing to watch each of these kids.
Something that really stands out to me was, as Ginger was saying, that New York is a large place, 26 million people, and we were thrown in there, just an extra 20, hardly ever noticeable. But the impacts we made for the kingdom of God were immeasurable, and how a lot of us were never been on an airplane before, never been to New York, never even been on a mission trip like myself. We ended up growing bold and giving our lives to Christ for that week. But the mission did not stop that week. Like, my main example of that is, like, when we were having excursion day, where we were doing some sites in New York. We were eating some lunch, and one of our kids, not from our church, but was still with our group, wore a shirt. that just said Jesus Freaks on it. And that turned into a conversation of how our waiter for our lunch ended up talking about how he lived in the Bronx and was looking for a home church. And that just taught me that it doesn't matter where you are or who you are, you can always share the gospel with others.
Something that stood out to me was kind of a cool fact, but it's not really cool. But there's 26 million people in New York City, and only 4% claim to be Christian, only claim to be, which is a little over 1 million. And if you think about it, that's not a whole lot, only 4%, you know. Just to make that number increase by 1% would be crazy. I mean, if we think about from Joplin, 1 million people, that's a lot of people from here. But to New York, that's just like 1 million people. So it's just crazy how only 4% claim to be Christian and how much work we can do as Christians to grow the kingdom.
So at the beginning of the trip, of course, we were all nervous, but we had 3 extra kids. We had Bryce, CJ, and Caleb come with us. And Caleb, his parents came. They were sponsors. But I just thought it was awesome that they showed up because they were by themselves. One was from Kansas, and the other 2 were from Oklahoma. But they were completely different churches and everything. And, I mean, I had 15 other people with me, so I was still nervous. But I at least had all of these guys. They just came by themselves, and it was just awesome to watch God work through them, even by themselves, without anybody else.
All right, perfect. So next question I want us to talk about is really just when we go on a mission trip, a lot of times there's just a couple things. Everything sticks with you, but there's a couple things that really just stick out. I'm gonna remember this. God's gonna continue to use this, whether it's a story, something happened, something God showed you. One of those couple of people share? What are those things that are going to stick with you beyond just a mission trip, but forever will go with you?
So we would serve the kids lunch at the camps that we did for the kids, and we would give away any extra food to the kids. And being able to see their face light up getting food, because I guess sometimes we take food as, we're just hungry and we're just gonna go eat somewhere. And if we waste a whole bunch of food, we just don't think about it. But when we give that food to those kids and we see their faces light up, it's truly it hits us in the heart, wow, we're truly ungrateful for the things that sometimes we get just out of the blue, because those kids, sometimes they don't even get lunch or they don't get dinner. So they're constantly hungry. So seeing their faces light up is just something that really hits me in the heart.
I think for me, going on a mission trip, I kind of had the mindset that how can I be an encouragement to these people when we went, and really it ended up being they were more of encouragement to me than I was to them in a way. Just the obvious lostness, we talked about the 96% loss, but those 4% at Everlasting Church that we were at, those people, those Christians, they lived all out for Jesus. It wasn't just a Sunday, Wednesday faith. It was a sold-out faith every single day. And that was so encouraging to see that even in this extremely dark area, that there's people that are totally sold out for Jesus.
I don't know if this was mentioned, but kind of along what Jordan was saying, on Sunday during the service, Jordan stopped before they did anything else and said, okay, does anyone have any prayer requests? And then he went around, he wrote down each prayer request on a note, a notebook or something, and then he prayed for each one of them. And it was just really encouraging to see all of them rally around each other, but also just how much compassion he had for each and every single one of them. And of course, it is a smaller church, so that's easier to do, but that definitely will stick with me, that he cared so much that he asked every single one of them, do you have a prayer request? Do you have a prayer request? Things like that, so.
Taking surveys was definitely my favorite part. We got to ask people what are the needs in the neighborhood, and some people just loved living in the Bronx, and others were like, this place is so dirty, if we could just clean it up. And then we'd ask if it was religious, and some people were like, oh yeah, there's so many different cultures, like everyone has their own religion, and some people were like, no, there's nothing at all. And then we'd ask people who Jesus was to them, and some claimed to be Christians, while others had absolutely no clue who Jesus Christ was. And just seeing all the different perspectives and religions, cultures, just what people believed and why they believed it was really eye-opening to me.
So one thing about, I think it was the first day we got there, or first full day, we went out and just in groups and prayed over different spots, like the library, the different schools. I don't remember where all we prayed, the park. And when Ginger was talking about these kids are rock stars, they're rock stars. So we challenged each kid to pray out loud in their group. And we had one kid that was like, I can't do that. I can't pray out loud. I mean, how many of us struggle with praying out loud, right? And so I just encouraged this kid. I was like, just pray for the safety of the kids. And this kid prayed that, super nervous, felt like he didn't do a good job. And by the end of the week, it just blessed my heart so much. Jordan or Jet, someone said, hey, who's going to pray for our meal today? This kid raised his hand and prayed out loud, not just his little group of 4, but in front of all of his peers. And so, you know, when you guys pay for these kids to go on mission trips and sponsor them, it's not just touching New York City or Fort Worth or Green Country or Tulsa. It's helping us grow too. I have absolutely no doubt that every single one of us came back stronger in our faith and challenged us in areas that we weren't growing in or we weren't being pushed in. So thank you guys for all your support and sponsoring us adults and these kids, because without that, you know, none of this would have happened. So I want to thank you guys for doing that.
So I don't know if anybody's ever heard the phrase, I want what she has, or I want what he has. So that phrase will always stick in my mind. There was a particular lady that came with a friend of hers to church on Sunday. And her friend had said, they lived right there in the Brady Court Apartments, again, the same apartment building that this Everlasting Church is in. And she came because her friend had something that she wanted. So a big takeaway from that for me was, do I show that something that other people look at me and go, I want what she has? You know, when I encounter people, do I show that? God has definite appointments for people. Jackie saw that something in Renee. Renee says, you're coming with me to church today. God appointed this group to be at that church, to come alongside that lady, for Jackie to accept Christ in her life. All of the different workings that God had planned led to that moment. And I messaged Jackie this morning and I said, there's not a Sunday that's going to go by that I don't think about you. that I don't wonder, are you sitting in that church? I want to go back and sit in that church with her one day, because that was a monumental moment in my life, to have her say those words and to think, am I doing that?
Yeah, I'm just going to open it up. We kind of close our time out here. We're going to hang out. I'm going to ask the team to hang out after service. So if there's something you all have questions about that you want to answer or you want to know about, please come ask us. But man, if there's something you guys on the stage haven't shared that you want to, go ahead and do that now.
So while I was in New York, I learned to really trust God's timing, because there were so many situations to where like we were walking and these specific people would say no. And then we'd get to a corner and then somebody from the other road would meet us there and say yes to the survey. We'd get their number and everything and like help out those people. And just to think that if one of those other people said yes, or if we went a different way or were any slower or faster, we would not meet that person. It was just awesome to see God work specific ways, specific timing. It was great.
One thing that I've taken away from this trip is to trust people more often, because I didn't really trust anyone. I mean, we're all friends and all that, but I have like boundaries and stuff like that. And when I went to church Sunday, I seen this woman named Renee, and she was like, we didn't even meet her. And when we went up to say hi, she just told us her life story, told us everything. She was just like an open book. And it kind of inspired me to be more like her. So, yeah.
All right, perfect. So, again, it's been mentioned, but I want to thank Ginger and BJ and Jordan for being willing to go to New York, and Heather went with us to Tulsa. Just great support and encouragement, and like I said, you guys may not have went on a plane or a van with us, but you were with us. Your prayers meant the world. Your support meant the world. So if you want to give these guys a round of applause one more time, they're going to go ahead and take a seat.